I'm here to ask you, Patrick Tucker, did Barack Obama wiretap Trump Tower?
No.
Okay, thanks, Ben. We'll see you later. That's the show for the day.
No, that's not a thing that can happen. But this story does have some interesting legs to it. So it's not just something that suddenly appeared in the prefrontal cortex of Donald Trump's brain in the morning on Saturday. It has an origin. And so a lot of people trying to figure out where this all came from. Last night, Jake Tapper made some calls around and found that it probably came to Trump via a Breitbart article based in part on some comments made by radio host Mark Levin. Mm-hmm. So here's the full story, as I can figure out, having sort of watched this. To understand the origin of this idea, you have to go back to an article published in November by a writer named Louise Mensch. She wrote for a newspaper called Heat Street out of the UK. She works in New York, and she's kind of like a McCain, NatSec conservative, but also a former British MP. She writes this really hot story, exclusive FBI-granted FISA warrant covering Trump camp's ties to Russia. Now, this story says that the FBI sought and was given FISA warrants to look into some of the communications involving some of the people in the Trump campaign, Carter Page, Roger Stone, the interesting Florida
Interesting is a word, yes. That could be used.
And Paul Manafort and maybe one or two others that weren't named. And also to look at some server activity that was kind of unusual that was coming out of Trump Tower. There was a server that was communicating with another server belonging to a Russian bank. And people were like, huh. So basically the FBI, which is different from the president, one is a law enforcement and investigatory agency that is to operate independently. The other is the administrative branch of the country. Very different things. The FBI, after first seeking a FISA warrant in June, which was denied because it was very broad, goes back in October and is given a few FISA warrants to look into these guys. So Louise Mensch gets this story, big exclusive. A lot of people were like, Heat Street, that's kind of a weird outlet. Because it is. It's sort of like, but it's owned by News Corp. Having said that, I work for sort of a weird outlet. There's a lot of people that do. There's a lot of great journalists that are making great. Yeah. She's also someone to absolutely follow on Twitter, by the way. She's a fascinating person that follows this obsessively, super obsessively. Now, jump to January 19th, the New York Times publishes a piece saying FBI looking into, this is the day before the inauguration. I remember I was in D.C. There's a bunch of, folks coming in, Trump supporters coming in from all around the country. Roger Stone is actually in the Mayflower Hotel in the evening getting filmed for his TV show as this story breaks about the New York Times looking into an active investigation about looking into some of the folks in the Trump campaign and their ties to Russia. Roger Stone gets this on his phone, and I remember I was sitting there with a private detective friend of mine just looking around at all the mayhem going on around us, and he hurriedly gets up and leaves. So and then you have the inauguration, and then you have the crowd-sized debate, and then you have the travel ban, and then you have all of these other news cycles that happen, and then you get to Thursday. And Jeff Sessions has to recuse himself from the any investigation that might happen into all of this stuff because he lied or misspoke, whichever, under oath. Either way, not the best person to lead an investigation into all of this. Trump is furious. So are other people. And then you get to Mark Levin, goes on his radio show that night, looks at all of this other stuff, and then through the weird sphincter of kind of alt-right news, the human centipede that digests little bits of true news and then passes them through, the Breitbart, InfoWars esophageal tunnel until it eventually arrives in the mental digestive tract of Mark Levin. Then you get this news story that, where he basically says there's an attempt by the Obama administration to start a coup. Barack Obama himself ordered the tapping of Trump Tower. It's like, no, The bunch of FBI agents, part of an independent investigation, went ahead and requested a FISA warrant. The first one was denied. It was too broad. The second one was granted, which means a judge saw probable cause. This is reporting from Heath Street. And then the New York Times says this. Independent FBI agents given a FISA warrant, completely independent process. The executive branch does not interfere with that, and that's the whole thing. The executive branch does not order FBI agents out to go do this stuff. Legally, they can. It would be incredibly weird if they did. And then you get a story by Joel Pollack, 3rd of March, saying the headline is Mark Levin to Congress, investigate Obama's silent coup v. Trump. And it includes, it says the Obama administration files a request for the Foreign Surveillance Court to monitor communications involving Donald Trump. And next thing you know, Donald Trump wakes up in the morning, Mar-a-Lago, Saturday, sees this, accuses the president, former president, of high crimes and misdemeanors. Then, an hour later, says that Arnold Schwarzenegger stinks at The Apprentice and should be gone. And then an hour later, puts on his shoesies and goes plays golf.
Yeah. By the way.
Thank you.
Bravo. I really got to say, bravo.
That's a complete timeline right
That
there.
was a masterful telling of how we got to this insanity.
And that's how Donald Trump comes up with this idea.